Hello everyone, today I will be taking you through my presentation on the relationship between facilitation and the prepare for elicitation task. My name is Anne Bola and I have put together a few slides that I hope gives you some basic understanding of the importance of facilitation in the elicitation process, but more so in the preparation for it. Let's start by looking at what is elicitation. Elicitation is the drawing forth or the receiving of information from stakeholders or other sources. It is the main path to discovering requirements and design information, and might involve talking with stakeholders directly, researching topics, experimenting, or simply being handed information. Prepare for elicitation. Now, before we go into this, there are three main tasks in the elicitation process. That is, preparing for the elicitation, conducting it, and confirming the results. We will be focusing on the preparing for elicitation task in the next few slides. Now, preparing for elicitation is the first task in the elicitation process. The purpose of prepare for elicitation is to understand the scope of the elicitation activity, select appropriate techniques, and plan for appropriate supporting materials and resources. So basically, the purpose is to ensure all needed resources are organized and scheduled for conducting the elicitation session. Now let's look at some of the inputs and the outputs that has been given to us in the BA-BOK 3.0. Now inputs. 1. Needs. Now elicitation can be used to discover the needs, but in order to get started, there must be some need that exists, even if it has not yet been fully elicited or understood. 2. Stakeholder engagement approach. Understanding stakeholders' communication and collaboration needs helps us in planning and preparing appropriate and effective elicitation session. Outputs. Scheduled resources. This includes the participants, the location in which the session will be held, and any other resources that may be required. Supporting materials. Any materials required to help explain the techniques used or perform them. Business analysts prepare for elicitation by defining the desired outcomes of the activity, considering the stakeholders involved and the goals of the initiative. This includes determining which work products will be produced using the elicitation results, deciding which techniques are best suited to produce those results, establishing the elicitation logistics, identifying any supporting materials needed, and understanding circumstances to foster collaboration during an elicitation activity. Preparing for activities of the preparing for elicitation. 1. Understand the scope of the elicitation. Business analysts prepare for elicitation by defining desired outcomes of the activity. 2. Select the elicitation technique, that is, deciding which techniques are best suited to produce those results that you want. Set up logistics, that is, establishing the elicitation logistics, like how many people, which facility, and what supplies, etc. 4. Secure supporting material. That is, identifying any supporting materials needed. 5. Prepare stakeholders. That is, considering the stakeholders involved and the goals of the initiative and understanding circumstances to foster collaboration in an elicitation activity. Now, facilitation and preparing for the elicitation. According to the PMI Guide to Business Analyst book, facilitation is the collection of activities involved in directing and coordinating work among groups of people, such as those involved in the prepare for the elicitation task. Facilitation skills for a business analyst involves facilitating work within the business analyst approach, such as facilitating decision-making and organizational change, as well as facilitating activities supporting elicitation. We will spend some time in the upcoming slide to look into these activities and establish their link to facilitation. Facilitation and preparing for elicitation. Some of the facilitation activities have been listed here. So let's see how the facilitation ties into the elicitation task of preparing for elicitation. On my bullet points, you will see facilitation activities. And in my examples that is next to them, you will see facilitation activities specific to the prepare for elicitation task. So let's start with number 1. Scheduling and planning meetings. Example would be scheduling and planning for your elicitation session. 2. Inviting appropriate members. That is, preparing the list of people for the elicitation session. 3. Preparing agendas and meeting materials. Example, preparing adequate information for stakeholders to understand what your elicitation session will be about. 4. Maintaining control of a meeting. Example, preparing your own data for the elicitation meeting ahead of time to fully acquaint yourself on the topic. 5. Encouraging useful discussion. Example, prepare questions ahead of time, know the direction you want the session to take, and prepare for it. 6. Comprehensive engagement. Example, preparing your material and ensuring you know who your stakeholders are, and prepare the right communication techniques to employ to suit your audience, as well as having a good understanding and grasp of the subject matter as part of your preparation. And 7. Ensure proper capture of information and tracking of issues and action items. Example, stakeholder grids, attendee lists, technology equipment needed for your elicitation session, and other resources needed, like meeting room, proper sign-offs for resources, etc. Now let's look at this summary, and here is where we're gonna have a basic one-liner to tie up everything. Now, good facilitation skills lead a BA closer to having a good elicitation session, which leads the entire team closer to having a good quality business solution. As a BA, we have to facilitate work within the business analyst approach, as well as facilitate elicitation supporting activities. The preparation for elicitation can seem overwhelming, especially for a novice BA, because of the many decisions we have to make that can make or break our actual elicitation session. The best place to start is with what you know and what you have, and in turn it will open up other paths or branches, and before you know it, you will start climbing that tree and having all your preparations in place for a successful elicitation session. Thank you so much.